Hello, welcome to CMFXPRO. We're going to do a quick analysis at the end of New York session. It's an hour past the close. We're going to show conditions of the market up against our indicator, which is in line with the principles, the main principles of beat the market maker or market maker method. Okay, let's continue. Please stop and read. By continuing, you are accepting these terms. Okay, let's get right to it. We got USD chef sitting, lining up with last week's low exhaustion area. So right off the start of the week, it did the false move up beginning, false move week beginning, I should say. And now we're sitting here at a possible ID 50 overexhausted 13 to 5 EMA back to the water is a possible push. So we'll just watch for those conditions, see what happens after consolidation into Asia. GU. Again, it's almost reaching up to last week's previous high. It's going to be a zone area here. If it does pass this zone and reaches up to the 800, it's a good chance where this bullish trend that began last week, or even before last week, is going to hold pretty steady. We do have an obvious W off the Mayo on the H1. It's going into consolidation right now. I'm going to bounce back and forth from the H1 to 15, as these are the current conditions that usually do the trapping. And as you can see on the M15, I had low exhaustion off of the 800, off the blueberry. So that's obvious conditions. Low exhaustion on the blueberry, and it's done a nice rise. This was a couple days ago. Beginning of Asia session out of Friday. So that's right where that ID 50 finger is pointing right here out of the Asia session, and it's really rose up from there. And then the initial bullish trend started back here on the 15th. So everything is lining up nicely. Had a nice counter trend come back. It act like this was peak at safety. Let's see if it breaks this level, then we know we're really following a bullish trend. EU, same conditions as of last week and the 15th. Had a very low exhaustion. We got, again, the same conditions that was out of Asia session, ID 50 bounce. We'll go to the M15. Oops. There was no low exhaustion here, but you can obviously see if you mark this and go to here, GU has low exhaustion. That's what cross-comparison exhaustion conditions mean. It's very similar to fractional disparity, which is something that is taught in Beat the Market Maker. Okay, so that exhaustion stands for that condition. AU had exhaustion. Let's find NU had exhaustion. So 3 of the major 4 pairs that are in line of the same movement of the majors all had the very nice exhaustion. Okay. Fractional disparity at its finest. Let's continue. GU has actually got some high exhaustion right up here at the M15. So I'll have to pay attention to that condition. It's not showing the exhaustion on the H1 yet. EU had the high exhaustion back here. Coming over here. UJ had some really nice high exhaustion on the H1 as of last week. Really dropped down nicely from that condition. Had the low exhaustion here. This is kind of somewhat like the midweek reversal areas. We'll go down to the 15 for this. Let's see here. So this had the high exhaustion Friday. It's really pretty much just dropped directly from that Asia high exhaustion on Friday. Now it's locked. The 50 is now crossed to 200. And it's locked below, so we'll see what conditions set up after Asia session. Okay, US CAD is a really nice play today. High Asia session exhaustion on Friday. Really a nice drop. Came as of close of Friday. Had low exhaustion established. Really, if you made an entry at that area, I mean, you would have woke up in profit for sure. For those on the East Coast. at New York session, you would have woke right up to a nice, beautiful profit. A couple hours, it would have did the New York reversal down for 100 and so pips. We are starting to get some low exhaustion through this area here. It might pull back up to do a bounce off the 50. We'll see how things go. See where we're at in the weekly. It is close to weekly low range, 92 pips. So we have to keep an eye on that. It's quite a ways away from the weekly high. So H1 trend direction is still pretty much down. You got all these hits. Overexhausted this area right here. Surpassed the weekly range high by quite a bit. And really has broken down since then. AU. Let's get rid of this Maka here. H1 conditions, you got an ID50. It did do a bounce off of the pretty much an ID50 bounce off of the male. 50 has crossed to 200 as of today. This is something definitely to keep an eye on. It is up against Blueberry 800 EMA. Let's see what happens into Asia session. If it surpasses this, maybe meet up with last week's high exhaustion. Maybe we'll see a continuation of trend. If it breaks this zone of that high, obviously it's going to surpass this previous high zone area here. Let me switch back to AU and give you a 15-minute view. We did have a high exhaustion Friday. It fell down through. We have a W off of the 800, and the 250 have crossed the 800 now, which is pretty big. This low exhaustion was of last week, early Thursday. No, that's early Asia session Friday. Overextended exhaustion, nice multi-session. Met up with a double, all the hits to the bottom, and directly pulled out. Back to day one. Euro Great Britain, we're sitting at some nice high exhaustion areas right now. Let's see here, we're 38 pips away from day range high. It's at no real extreme condition. It did start to short today and did a nice W off the 13. Let's see what M15 looks like. Let's see here. Yeah, it's a nice W off the 50. And that's 13 is locked above the 50 now. We'll see if they'll pull out for another rise. EA. Really overextended exhaustion. Finished out at an Asia session high. Safety entry right here. That's what this symbol represents. Okay, you got all this exhaustion. You don't see one of these symbols anywhere except right here. This is the data I acquired to collectively have an ID safety position after peak. As it came down, it pulled back up, and your entry is right here. And you can tell that's not a bad entry. Definitely. Euro Chef. Let's begin with the H1. Low exhaustion back here on the 14th. 15th is your safety entry off of this exhaustion. Had the confluences like we like to see before the first leg, second leg, or it's really the second leg, and ID safety. It did have the confluence with the 50 on the H1. We like to see that. M15. We had high exhaustion early Asia session today. Really just bounced off. Tried to touch the 200 and just took off from there really nicely. Nice range bound trading today. Euro Jap. Same conditions really. Let's see here. We had similar conditions to the Euro Chef if you see the pattern. Nice. This exhaustion, low hit to the 200, and now locked on the 50. Look at very similar pattern, guys. It's all in the pattern. Exhaustion, hit to the 200, low or rise, and a lock above the 50. And it's surpassed hitting above the monthly range high area. Okay, go back to H1. Great Britain Chef. Let's see here. didn't quite hit a monthly range low last week. Still running. Okay, Great Britain Chef. It's still riding off this monthly high, close hit, monthly range high, 480 something pips from that zone. We'll look at the M15. It really just made a bounce off of the 200, and now the price 13 is locked below the 50. We'll see how things look on the M15. All right, why is it? Okay. All right. So we had some high exhaustion last week, but it did hit the 800 very nicely and pretty much just dropped from there. Had a low exhaustion range, another hit to that level, and really just ranged tightly to the 200. Catch up. Let's see here. Pretty much the same condition as Euro Jap, if you've noticed. Where's catch up? Where was it? Yeah, right here. Very similar, except it came to the 800 or a W off of the male, below the male, and locked above the 50. Very similar condition to DJ. These patterns are, once you start recognizing and the fraction of disparity level that's taught with beat the market maker, you'll really see patterns follow right through with a lot of pairs. Okay, even though this is GJ and that's CAD-JAP, very similar pattern. Look at that. Below the male, locked above the 50. Below the male, locked above the 50. It's all about the patterns, guys. Aussie New Zealand has some low exhaustion as of last Thursday. It's been really riding in line with that previous, let's see, actually this exhaustion right here, very nicely. There's your safety entry conditions, and you have your lock above the 800 on the H1, and you have your lock above the 200 on the M15. Odd-CAD, H1, we have riding off this high exhaustion from last week, came down to the low, and I can guarantee you this area here, you will see ID50 exhaustion of the 13 and 5 EMA to the 50 is going to be right here. Oh, maybe wrong spot. Right here. Sorry. Safety entry, take away, high exhaustion, take profit. It's now locked above the actually did a nice multi-session bounce, ID50s and 50-50 bounce. Came back to the 800 and now locked 13 and 50 are locked below the 200. Odd Chef. We're going to look at low exhaustion on the H1 back here. So that's basically the trend direction as of now. And we're going to look at this low exhaustion here. We had high exhaustion out of Asia session, which completed this run here. Almost a hit to the 800. And now it's locked and ranging. 50 has locked above the 200, so we'll have to see what the conditions, which might form a W. All for the male on the M15 for a rise to the 800. JEP, high exhaustion as of Friday, close to New York close. Asia session open, matched up with that exhaustion. Nice drop down, W off the male. Really just pulled away. Nice ID 50. Now the price is locked above the 50. Chef Jap. Similar condition. Remember this pattern? High exhaustion Friday. Asia session met. High exhaustion from Friday. W on the male. Locked above the 50. Where did we see that? Right here. Right here. Right there. Nope, not there. But if you see what I'm saying about cross comparison exhaustion, this was the high for CJ, That's also the high area for GJ and Chef Jap. Very similar conditions. Euro New Zealand, again, a long extended bounce off the 200, locked above the 50. A lot of similarities with everything that happened today. Now the strange thing about EuroCAD is it's on a W type formation, but we had a nice M off of the 50 up here, and now price is locked below the 50, retesting the 200. Catch up. W off the mail on the M15. Let's see the exhaustion. We had a safety entry back here. The low of Friday. I'm pretty sure there's some exhaustion there. Let's see. Yes, there was. Low exhaustion. Pretty much up in this area. Take profit. ID 50 range. If you break this down into the 5-minute, you will see that exhaustion. Or not. I don't even see the indicator in there. Okay, we'll go back to the ID 50 finger, showing the 50-50 bounce back to the water and the mail. Right there, it met up basically with Friday's low, was today's low, and took off from there. That's your false week beginning move, trapping both sides right here. And now it follows in line with the previous Friday exhaustion to get back in line uptrend. That same condition, high as of here, no different than the Chef Jap or Cat Jap. There's the high, Asia session, same thing with New Zealand Jap, it was Asia session, and a nice W off the 200, locked above 50. I think I've said that multiple times. New Zealand had high exhaustion Friday. Asia session met high exhaustion. ID 50 off to 200.
What are you doing up there?
GN. And a lot of tight ranging off the 50 into the 200 and 13 off the 800. This area here we want to look at. This was another low exhaustion area zone. We met up to it and took off, so we're going to look at the M15. Okay, we did have some low exhaustion as of Friday. Asia session earlier, met up with that low exhaustion, multi-session W, and made a nice hit to the 800 on high exhaustion, and now 50 is locked below the 200 for a drop. GA. Again, low exhaustion Friday. Asia session hit the low. Rise to 200. Great Britain Chef had low exhaustion as of Asia session last week, just like GU, right here. Now it's pretty much just ranging up to 200. Let me lose my indicator. New Zealand CAD had low exhaustion on the 15th, had high exhaustion right here. And so where we left off was last week's high, was the Tuesday or Wednesday. So it's pretty much falling in line. did have a 90-50, 50-50 bounce right here. 50 is still locked above the 200, but now price has dropped below 13 crossing 50 into 200. So we'll break down to the M50, see where we're sitting. Okay, just a lot of tight ranging right now. Price has locked below the 800. We're still running off of the previous high exhaustion off of last week. New Zealand Chef. New Zealand Chef, same condition. Low exhaustion out of Asia session, or end of close Thursday for New York. Had high exhaustion right here. High exhaustion Friday. Asia session met that high exhaustion, and nice M off the 800. Now 50 is locked below the 2. Let's see what H1 condition is like. Not sure why. Okay. We're actually running off a low exhaustion here that's ranging tightly on the 200, and 50 keeps bouncing up to 200, so everything's really, that was more or less like a counter trend back condition. So everything's, it's in a confluenced area, obviously, with the 50 hitting the 200. So we'll have to keep an eye on that if it creates another low exhaustion, meet up with the exhaustion from the 8th, or the 10th actually, of August. There's a lot of hits to this area. Okay, I'm going to lead off with your stuff. Up the H1, low exhaustion, it's up against that low exhaustion condition. M15, no real exhaustion established right now. We had high exhaustion as a Asia session Friday. It's actually fell in line with the low exhaustion for EU, GU, AU, NU. So that's a quick wrap up of current conditions in the market up against their indicator, which represents beat the market maker or market maker method rules. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you. Have a good evening.